Tinder horror story: man sends woman list of brutal in x27. Tips in x27. 3 months after, a UK man sent his Tinder date an outrageous list of offensive in x27. Tips in x27. 3 months after, Kimberly Latham Hawksford, 24, matched with the unnamed man on Tinder earlier this year, and after a week of chatting the pair decided to meet up for coffee and a bite to eat at a nearby pub. Though the date started off well, things began to go downhill when the man decided it would be appropriate to ask Latham Hawksford over dinner if she would ever have plastic surgery. He also suggested different stores she should shop at before their next date and pitched a fit when she offered to pay for dinner, going as far as showing off his bank balance on his phone to prove he had the money. The date was just a disaster, Latham Hawksford told, adding the man was a snob and just generally a horrible person. Safe to say, there was no second date. But 3 months later the man reappeared in Latham Hawksford and x27's texts, sending her an extensive list of an x27 tips in x27 and suggestions for brace yourself, this list gets rough. The man started by explaining he wanted to let Latham Hawksford know why he had an x27. T contacted her for a second date, claiming that she could have made the date much better and apologizing in advance if he offends her. Then he kicks off his 15-point list of things she did wrong, should improve on, or just generally did an x27. T sit well with him. If you lost some weight you would look incredible. Maybe a stone or I think you need to wear clothes that suit your figure and maybe update your style slightly. Just so he added that Latham Hawksford was also very pale and a bit of fake tan wooden in x27. T heard, as well as telling her to show off her cleavage more. You need to look more natural, stop wearing makeup. Just make your lips have gone down, so you should think of getting more filler. I know you said you. Then he rounded off his criticisms of her appearance by instructing Latham Hawksford to dye her hair and add extensions, because longer hair is much more attractive. But don an x27. T think he was done yet. The man then you need so much more confidence, confidence is sexy. He said, with absolutely no self-awareness. The fact you take things slow makes you look like a prude. I didn't an x2. He wrote that Latham Hawksford should an x27. T talk about her past because I don an x27. T care about it and what you went through, then criticized her for not complimenting him, and added that having full fat coke is more calories you don an x27. T need get a sense of humor, you didn't an x27. T laugh at a single one of my jokes, he wrote, you just seemed a bit stuck up. Sort your personality. And that little tantrum he threw about paying? Yeah, you made me feel shit when you offered to pay. It an x27. Then he rounded off the whole mess with a parting promise, if you take these on board I might consider another date. I will give you a month. Latham Hawksford was not impressed, nor was she interested in another date. At first I was absolutely mortified and it killed my confidence, she said of the message. But the more I read it the funnier it became. I couldn't an x2, so no, the man won an x27. TV getting a second date, but Latham Hawksford has a simple, one-step tip for him: respect women. His behavior is, compare more, find better. Watch now Apocalypse on Stan. Deposit $50 bet with $200. Search properties in AUS. Do more with your money. Copyright 2019-9 Digital Tie Limited. Copyright 2019-9 Digital Tie Limited.
Raindrop, drop top, smoking, no cooking the hot pot. Fucking on your bitch, yeah, that. Looking up, open the park pot.